Dear Yensid, I fear that my journey to Darkon has been delayed. I had been in the process of completing my report on Agrabah when I was overcome by a wave of dizziness. I closed my eyes and waited for the episode to pass. The next thing I knew, a hand was gripping my upper arm. I opened my eyes to see Nebula, Thanos' blue-skinned tiefling daughter, and a sky that was significantly darker than it had been mere seconds ago. "We need to go," she said. "Now." I recoiled. I trust Nebula. I understand this statement will be inexplicable to you, as I did not disclose any specifics of our conversation upon leaving Titan, but she had implied a desire to defect from Thanos' service, and I believed her. However, between that heavy sense of foreboding that has been with me since my arrival in Agrabah and the nature of my recent lapses, Nebula could have held a dagger to my eye, and it would not have filled me with the same raw panic as the idea of leaving the domain with one of Thanos' children. No, not until you tell me what's going on. Nebula rolled her eyes. "We don't have time for this." "Then make time." She ignored me. "Longing. Rusted. 17. Daybreak.
Nebula, what are...
Furnace. 1.
Stop saying random words and tell me what is happening. Nebula!
Benign.
Stop ignoring...
Freight. And then everything changed. When I had written my report to you, it had been late afternoon. I believe that it had been near sunset when Nebula appeared. Now it was the middle of the night, and we were standing well beyond the city walls in the shadow of a sand dune. I pulled away, assuming my form of dread and preparing to hurl an eldritch blast at her if necessary.
What in the hells did you just do?
I activated you. If I were following our father's orders, we would be on our way to Titan right now. Our father. I knew then. Part of me screamed in protest, but I knew. The missing time, the sleepwalking, the dreams, my inability to speak of it to you, or even to make the simple mental connection that it had not been Bill Cipher or some other outside force who had been invading my mind, nor had I been a victim of my own fears. It had been him all along. And even now I cannot write his name in conjunction with my dreams. I had lost consciousness while enduring his tender ministrations. What had he done to my mind during that time? My form of dread slipped away. What? I hated how my voice trembled, but I couldn't stop it. What has he been making me do? Don't be dramatic. You've only been spying. After you made your reports to your master, you passed them along to our father, and whenever you found magic items that might be of interest to him, you informed him about those as well. You've gotten off easy. I think that's why you never told him about me. You never told your master, and I'm not one of my father's precious stones. I'm sorry, Yensid. I'm so sorry. Please believe me. I didn't know, and it wasn't my choice. I've told you before that I would never willingly divulge your secrets, and I kept my word. Even if you doubt my loyalty, you must surely know that I would die by slow torture before informing Thanos of so much as the weather conditions. I don't understand, I said. How have I been communicating all of this? The object that I used to communicate with my patron, I kept it away from Titan. Thanos never touched it. Nebula pulled down the neckline of my dress. You've spoken to this. Into what? But before the words were even out of my mouth, again, I knew. I touched my collarbone, feeling the sigil there, except... No, that wasn't right. There hadn't been anything there before. Ebony Maw hadn't carved anything that high. His handiwork had all been between my heart and my navel, and this felt more like a brand than like a scar. He never branded me. But as I touched it, I thought I could smell my own flesh burning, and then I remembered Thanos in my head, the feeling of my skull bursting apart to make room for him, of my consciousness being crushed smaller and smaller against the walls of my own mind. I remembered him peeling back my memories and that sense of being flayed alive and how I had blacked out from the pain. Except I hadn't. When he had finished taking what he wanted from me, I was lying on the floor. I dimly remembered falling at some point in the process, and the sense of someone catching me and lowering me to the ground while I had convulsed in helpless agony. There were no convulsions now. There was nothing. I was conscious, but gods, there was no fight left in me. I couldn't move. I could barely think. My head hurt so badly that I was sure it had burst open, that bits of blood and brain and bone were splattered all over the floor. I wanted to touch my hair and to feel if it was clotted with the stuff. I couldn't die with that all over me. Dinks and Billy and Papa would be so distraught if they saw me looking like that. But I lacked the strength to lift my arm. Thanos was going to kill me here, and I would die with no thoughts except that my head hurt and that I doubtless looked a mess. That seemed like it should bother me, but couldn't quite remember why.
I sincerely wish that you hadn't made me do that.
I could hear his words, but they weren't important. The important thing was that I had managed to move my head just a little, and I could see that the floor was clean. My skull hadn't burst open, it just felt like it had. That was good. Binks had worried over me enough. I would hate for my appearance to upset him. Then Thanos opened the door.
Come.
And sudden, full awareness slammed back into me as my body rose to follow him, subject to his will instead of my own. No, not this, not forcing me to be a meek, docile party to whatever came next. No. But I was helpless to do anything except follow him obediently into the torture chamber, where the Maw was waiting. And then there were more blades slicing into my skin, carving the glyphs that would bind me to his will and muddle my mind so I couldn't realize what had been done to me. And then a blinding, white-hot pain in my collarbone, and the smell of burning flesh. And I wanted to scream, but I could not, because Thanos hadn't given me permission. And then I felt the weight of his massive hand atop my head and heard his voice, incongruously gentle, telling me that I had done very well. As I said, I couldn't scream, but in my mind, I screamed for you, Yensid. I thought there was nothing else I could do, and my only hope was that with your magic, somehow you would hear me. I made all kinds of rash promises to you and to the gods and to anyone who might listen about all the things that I would do if only you came to save me. But you didn't. And so I just kept screaming and screaming and screaming your name without making a sound. And then I think I truly did black out, and I returned to consciousness on the floor of his throne room with a damp cloth on my forehead. His attempts to win me over had seemed perfunctory at best, but why wouldn't it be? He had looked into my mind. He knew that he could never earn my cooperation, and so he had already taken it by force. My dreams, I said. I thought they were just fears of what he might do someday, but they were my reports to him, weren't they? Every time I had a nightmare about him using the Black Cauldron or Jack Sparrow's compass or Alma Madrigal's candle to do something horrible, I was advising him on how to do it. I don't know or care what you dreamed about. I just know that I'm supposed to bring you back to Titan so he can debrief you before whatever comes next. Your communication with him was one way. He wants more details. When I tensed, she gave me a withering look. Do you think we'd be having this conversation if I were planning to do it? Right. No, of course. I had to stop mid-sentence as she tossed something toward me, and I caught it before it hit me in the face. It was small, silver, and although I'd seen it every day for 3 years, it took me a moment to understand what I was holding. It was my ring of protection. How did you get this? Gamora already had one, so he gave it to me. If you don't want it, I'll throw it down a well. I'm done taking crumbs from his table. That wasn't possible. How could she have my ring? I'd had it since... It had gone cold, then hot, when Thanos had invaded my mind. Had I felt it since then? I had been so sure that I had seen it on my finger every day. I had even put my ring of spell storing on my left hand because I knew my ring of protection was on my right. Just as I had seen my unblemished collarbone every day. My perceptions, it seems, are no more trustworthy than my memories. Of course the Mad Titan had taken my ring and given it to one of his children. The last thing he wanted was for my mind to have additional defenses. I slid it back into place and felt its familiar, comforting cold. Fragments from my nightmares flashed through my mind. I shouldn't ask the next question that was on my tongue. I shouldn't. Knowing wouldn't change anything. But I had to know. If you took me back, he was going to try to rewrite my memories, wasn't he? He was going to make me think he'd found me as a child, and that was the plan. And if it hadn't worked, your death would have been quick. Her mouth twisted sourly. He really likes you. I shuddered. That's vile. I should have known he'd think of something like that. He didn't. You did. I stared at her. It hadn't only been the stones that I'd been giving him advice on. There was a ringing in my ears, growing louder and louder. I threw back my head and screamed, and the sound of my scream was not a sound. We've left Agrabah together. Nebula has agreed to accompany me for the time being so she can wake me if I lose myself. I know we should be in Darkon right now, and yet I cannot bring myself to go there. How did this happen, Yensid? You are arguably the most powerful and knowledgeable wizard in our world, and yet you could imagine no cause for my nightmares and sleepwalking beyond wild magic and stress? And you allowed yourself to be outmaneuvered by, what did you call him? A lazy, simplistic, brutish, strong-handed buffoon? If that buffoon had sent any of his children to retrieve me except Nebula, I would be dead or his slave. And yet you failed to notice because your gaze was too focused on what, a broken lamp? You are under my protection so long as you remain in my charge. You told me that more than 3 years ago, and even then, even in those early days when we despised one another, I believed it. Your little scholar has learned so many things while in your employ. Today she's learned the value of your word. I cannot abide the thought of you reaching into my head and stirring around the contents, Azalin. You'll doubtless tell me that I'm being a hysterical child, that I'm allowing a limb to fester until the gangrene spreads to my heart rather than calling on a surgeon for amputation. Perhaps you're correct. But I am not yet desperate enough to trust a blade in the hands of so careless a physician. I cannot return home. I don't trust myself with my family. I cannot travel to the next location on my itinerary. Thanos knows my itinerary, and when Nebula fails to return me to him, it will be the first place he will look. Instead, I've used the mist talisman from the peddler, despite not knowing where it would take me. Perhaps this decision was mad. So be it. We're all mad here. Your regards, D.
You assume much, yet know little, Miss Denis. When one lets their emotions reign over logic, one will always fail to locate the spider hidden in the webs. I expected more from you. Perhaps that is my own failing. You are, as you have always been under my service, free to make your own decisions. The choice to travel with a known associate of your enemy instead of returning to Darkon so I may end your suffering is your own. Perhaps you assumed you had no choice in the matter. Perhaps you assumed she was being entirely truthful with you. Perhaps you simply wished to storm off like an angry child. When one's emotions are high, it is difficult to decipher the reasoning behind their decisions. If this ends favorably for you, you are an incredibly lucky individual. Or this peddler is more knowledgeable than he lets on.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Aslan Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at Darklord Aslan. The Wonderful World of Darklords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.